My name is Montoya, pastor of the Grove in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We launched September 21st of 2014, and it's been an amazing journey. Today I want to talk to you about being a healthy leader. You might have heard it said that ministry is a marathon, it's not a sprint. I'll take that a step further and say ministry is not just a marathon, but it's a marathon relay where we pass on to the next generation the baton that we've been carrying. I see this in Jesus' life. He accomplished more in 3 years than many of us can do in a lifetime. A strong sense of identity, get a strong sense of purpose. It's easy to get distracted, it's easy to forget about the finish line, and we miss God's best for our life. See, some leaders, they may finish, some finish strong, some might finish with a limp, they finish, and others, they don't make it there because they fall out, they get distracted, they get taken out of the race. My hope is that you would be that leader that finishes strong, and not just finishes strong, but helps others to finish strong as well. I heard a story about a rabbi who was walking home one day from ministry after ministry, and he was engaged in prayer, and as he's walking, he's praying with his hands up, and he's walking down the road, and he comes to this fork in the road. And he's so engaged in his prayer that he doesn't realize that he takes the wrong fork. So the sun begins to set. He finds himself at this wooden gate. And as he's there thinking about where he took the wrong turn, a voice from above comes and says, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" And the rabbi pauses and thinks, wow, that's a great question. Who am I and what am I doing here? And as he's waiting to think about how he's going to respond, the voice comes again a little stronger. Who are you and what are you doing here? He thinks, I got the right question to ask. He says, how much do they pay you to ask that question? And the Roman centurion from above says, two denarii a week. Why? And the rabbi says, I tell you what, I'll pay you double if you'll come to my house every morning and ask me those two questions. Who are you and what are you doing here? So I believe that the rabbi, the teacher, understood the importance of knowing who we are, identity, and knowing our purpose is so important that when we forget it, it's easy to get off track. We live in a very distracted culture. A highly distracted culture. I think focus is one of the main things. If we're going to be healthy, we have to have a strong focus in our life, a strong focus in our ministry, that we don't forget who God's called us to be. Don't forget what God has called us to become. I look at Jesus, and he summed this up perfectly for the disciples. He had such a strong sense of purpose that even in his opening invitation to them, right? Come and follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. What was he saying? Here's your identity. I want you to be passionate. I want you to follow me. I want you to be my disciple. Essentially become like me. And then second, we're gonna fish for people. Like, this is all about people. We're gonna go after the lost. We're gonna raise up leaders to carry the mission forward. It's amazing that Jesus' mission is still alive and going strong today. Why? Because he had such a strong sense of purpose of what he was accomplishing. He spent all his energy and time on that. It's interesting that the first thing the enemy attacked in Jesus' life was his identity and his purpose. If you are the Son of God, do this, right? And then he said, here's a shortcut. Let's get away from the purposes God's called you to, because there's something better here. There's something else here. And in our life, it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to begin to look from side to side and maybe compare with what other leaders are doing, or how awesome they are, maybe some insecurities we have. But all that does, it just keeps us distracted from the end goal. It keeps us from looking to the finish line. In fact, the disciples, they struggled with this. They kept wanting to say, hey, life is about this. And Jesus even went as far to call Peter Satan when he challenged the movement and the goal that Jesus had. He says, no, you can't do that. He says, Peter, you don't understand. You're thinking this way, sideways. I'm thinking long term. I'm looking at the finish line. I want to accomplish the purposes God has for me. And in our life, when it comes to distractions, it's easy to lose focus. It's easy to forget who we are and what we're doing here. Before we planted the Grove, I had the privilege to be able to work alongside a pastor to get some mentorship. And I worked with Pastor Carl for a few years before we launched out. And one of the things that Carl was great at is not only did he plant churches and go in and revitalize many churches, but he was also sent out to different churches that may struggle with church splits or moral failures. Working through these stories, he was using them to show me what led to this unhealthiness in a church. And as he'd coach me through and try to help me to learn how to be a healthy leader, how to spot things that would take our distraction away as a church or as a leader, I noticed something in Carl that was different than I see in a lot of other leaders. Is he had a love for people that many don't. And he wasn't cynical and he wasn't jaded towards ministry or towards people. And as I learned these stories, I stopped him one day and I asked him, I said, Pastor Carl, what's different about you? So you've been a pastor longer than I've been alive. What's kept you in the game healthy? What's kept you with this kind of heart towards people? And I'll never forget the lesson he taught me. I hold on to it because it's been so helpful. As he said, Eric, this is what I learned on early in ministry, is that people, they're people. People are people. They're gonna make mistakes, they're gonna mess up. People across from us, they're not the enemy, they're just people. So the enemy is the enemy, but those people are just people. And as I'm sitting across the table from somebody that's messed up, I realized very early that I'm only one decision and one step away from being that person. It would be very easy for me to make a choice that would lead for me to be on the other side of this conversation. See, he said this, Eric, he said, don't forget that we are all only one decision away from stupid. You and I, one decision away from blowing it all, throwing it all away, messing it all up. And he said we can't forget that, because the moment that we think we're above that or better than that is the moment we're most susceptible to making a decision that would cause that. But here's the good news. You're also just one decision away from better. A better future, a better family, better health. And we need to make those decisions, those choices, so we can become everything God wants us to become. And healthy leaders, they know this. We have a strong sense of identity, we have a strong sense of purpose, who's God called us to be, right? That keeps us on the journey, focused on the goal. And then we have a sense of what God has called us as individuals to accomplish with our lives. We can't lose focus of that. There's too much at stake. There's too many lost that need to find Jesus. We have to stay true to what God is calling us to do, to follow Him and then to win the lost and disciple leaders that will follow Him and win the lost. I believe the reason the disciples caught on to this is because they realized Jesus was so focused on what He was doing that they kept that in front of them. And there's a tendency, all of us have it, to begin to look to the sides and look for other things. That only creates sideways motion, and whenever we do that, we stop forward progress. I believe God is saying, don't lose the call that's on your life. There's too many people in our communities that don't know Him yet, that need us to be healthy so the church can be healthy, so we can raise up healthy leaders to continue moving the goal forward. We're going to finish the race and make it go the distance and finish strong. We can't lose focus. We can't forget who we are and what we're doing here. A few ways we can do that is look around us. I'm so grateful for the generations that have gone before us. We can learn a lot from their stories, a lot from the struggles they went through. And we can also learn from the generation that's coming behind us. There's things that they know that we don't. And so if we're gonna stay focused and stay true to what God's calling us to do, we need to stay humble. We need to stay open and teachable to those around us. Here's what I know about your ministry is your best years are still ahead. The years of influence are still to come. And the impact you can have can be great if you'll stay the course. I pray that you'll be able to go the distance. You'll be able to raise up other leaders to do what you've done. You need to be healthy. We need you to be healthy. Your family needs you to be healthy. Your church needs you to be healthy. Your community needs you to be healthy. And the next generation needs you to be healthy. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget what you're doing here. And remember, healthy people, they do healthy things. So choose health.